Hi there. Welcome to Infinite Stories. This is the podcast where we sit down and interview everyday people just like you and me. This is your host, Mitchell Vine, and boy, do we have an incredible story for you. Let's jump into this week's interview.
I'm ready.
Okay, well, let's get the easiest question out of the way. What's your name? Where are you from?
I'm Jordan. If you want to know the real story, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, but I currently live in Oregon and I've been here for some time. So,
All right. Well, sweet. Well, you kind of led into the next question. So, where you're from? Where did you start out? What was it like growing up as Jordan?
yeah. Um, well, being born and raised in Las Vegas, everybody asks the typical questions. What was that like? To distill that one, it's just suburb life. Um, but I grew up in a just a wonderful family. We're a family of four. A very entrepreneurial family, which is fun. My dad is an entrepreneur, so definitely learned those ways. And yeah, I I mean, I there's so much to say about my story. I would love to share any details you want to know about my life, but that's just a little nugget of where I'm from.
Gotcha. Do you have any like teen memories of like when you were a kid that you still think about?
Yeah, well, the fun thing is I was a very adventurous kid. I was very blessed to be in a family that got to travel a lot as a child. So, that's the one thing about being from Vegas. You have Vegas and desert all around you. So if you want to see anything different, you must go somewhere else. And we got to travel quite a bit as a kid. And my parents always told me that as a little girl, I was running through that airport, carrying my suitcase behind me, begging them to come on, come on. And I remember looking out the airport or the airplane windows and just like loving it. To this day, I always say if there's an airplane that was clear, like made out of plexiglass or something, I would so be in that because I just love the view of the world from above. So, but yeah, traveling as a child, it's truly like my best memories, and I'm very thankful for that experience. I got a lot of travel in as a young girl, and mostly around the US when I'm talking about that. I've traveled since internationally, but as a kid, it's mostly like US travel, and that was wonderful.
hmm That's pretty
Mhm.
sweet. So then let's stay back in that childhood area. Do you remember like the first time you ever encountered sin for the first time? Do you have any memories of
Hmm.
sin?
I mean, this is fun. I'm a pretty open book about been talking through a lot of my childhood very recently, and going through diving into lots of that. So, um, I will just say, like, I'm just that natural bent personality that I'm not a very rebellious person. Of course, there is plenty of sin in my life, but I would say as a child, I way more observed sin. And of course, like internally, nobody would experience um, I don't know. It's the good girl problem where you've got all of your struggles, but nobody views or sees them because you're just a pretty obedient child. So I'm saying that to say, like, when you ask that question, my initial response, as much as I'd like to claim it myself, is not so much recognizing my own sin, but recognizing sin around me and being like, that doesn't seem like it leads to a good place. Even from a young kid, I was thinking that I don't really want to go down that route. So I very much my coping mechanism in all of life had to become like the most rule follower, obedient child as I possibly could be. And of course, like, as any imperfect human, I've got plenty of sin in my life. But that's a very unique question that I think is a really great question. I don't think I can pinpoint one specific event, but I'd say my brother and I got to experience a lot of, as siblings do, a lot of what being a sibling and experiencing different emotions and how to as a child navigate those emotions in um, healthy ways versus ways that are just outright, you know,
Mm,
you know. I mean, it's the comprehension of a child of what sin is, sin being like just like separation from God, right? And not walking according to God's best design for our lives and pulling us away from Him. I don't think you are definitely as a child in sin, but not necessarily as like cognizant of what that actually means. Do you know what I mean? So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that's one of my I remember sitting down in a time of prayer as I was like trying to figure out some of the questions and stuff as I was creating the podcast as a whole. And I remember like talking with God about this question, and I just immediately was like, "Why do you want me to ask about sin? Who wants to talk about
Mm.
sin?" And he's like, "I want them to talk about sin. I want them to see." You need to be able to see the crap that you have walked through to be able to understand and grasp the redemption that you've experienced. And so
Hmm.
um, that is very interesting. I appreciate. I kind of saw like a twinkle in your eye of like, oh, that's not a question people ask. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's I appreciate your answer. That's very awesome. So kind of still reigning in that realm of questioning as you were walking through life. Did you have any like mentors or teachers that kind of guided you along as you grew up that really stick out in your brain still to this day?
Yeah, well, the story I would absolutely love to tell is the story of my grandma, my mom's mom. She was essentially a mentor that I probably didn't recognize was a mentor until later in life. Her impact in my life is bigger than any other person has impacted my life. But that impact was recognized, I think, during the relationship, but way more so. She has passed. She passed when I was 16, so way more so after.
Mm,
Um, and especially in my walk with the Lord, but the funny thing is, she hardly talked to me about the Lord.
mm,
And so it was not by word, it was all by action that I learned from her. And this is what I love. So to give you a little bit more detail, my grandma was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer when I was a little one. And when you get that diagnosis, you typically have a few months to live. But my grandma had the strongest will to actually live than anyone I know. And I think that your mentality can really take you really far. If you want to live, your
mm,
body's going to line up with your mind sometimes. Not always, but she had a strong will to live. And there's no one I knew more that enjoyed and was grateful for life in every single day. And this is the impact of this woman. It goes way beyond me. Um, the love that she had for others was felt so deeply by everyone. To get into even more of the details, I have an uncle who was just unfortunately lived his life in a way that he even admitted in the end was like, what a bummer that I chose to live my life that way. Alcoholic, abusive to his wife, left his children when they were just born, like just made a lot of poor choices. And yet, in the end, he said, "There's no one who loved me as well as my grandma did, who I knew loved me for me regardless of all the choices I had ever made in my life." And
mm,
so you can get an idea of the model of love that my grandma showed me. She just like relentlessly loved people exactly where they were, exactly as they were. And there's much evidence to that for when she actually did pass. Um, okay, I'm gonna come back to that point. Usually I don't like to do this, but I think it's so much more important to share a little bit before to show her strength as a person. So even through all that cancer, for many years, she also was single. She lived by herself and would like drive herself over and over to California to get treatments and stuff, which is just a hard life. But we never heard her complain. And when
mm.
I was probably about 13, her doctor overdosed her on chemo to the point where she got an infection in her hand and had to amputate her right arm off. Um, and that was her dominant. And yet still, never complained, figured out how to live life, literally cooked the whole family, the extended family, Thanksgiving dinner with one hand that same year. Learned how to drive by like putting a knob on her car. She learned how to rewrite with her left hand and wrote me a card for every single birthday. So you can just tell like this woman, and she just never complained at all about this like these cards she was handed in life. It was just pretty miserable.
Hmm.
A lot of things that were really hard to deal with. She just a heart of gratitude through it all. So when she did pass, her doctor had actually told her like she was healthy, well, healthy in the sense of cancer, but healthy enough to be living. And then her doctor said, "You've got 2 weeks." And honestly, she didn't even make it a week. And family from all over the country heard that, and in a second dropped everything they did and flew in. She had like 20 different members from our extended family fly in to see her. The five like within a day of finding out that she was not doing well. So I just wanted to share that story because I honestly, if I knew that she didn't have my mother, I would think she was an angel walking on this earth. She was just a miracle woman, just the heart she had for people and life and how much, yeah, she desired to live. It taught me so much of how to love people. Just your action. That's what's funny is like I learned so much about what it looked to love like Jesus without even ever like hardly hearing those words from her. I just watched it happen. So,
Mm,
yeah. Hmm.
that's cool. And you still feel those effects like to this day, right?
Oh
Like
yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's incredible. Not a whole lot of people can say that they've experienced it like a teacher or a mentor like that. So that's a
Hmm.
blessing. That's I'm a little jealous, but it's okay. You can have this. That's really cool. So, uh, let's kind of look at a grand picture over your life. Are there any lies that you believed about yourself over your lifetime? Any lies that you may have heard or were spoken over you, maybe?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, plenty. We've all got so many of them. Um, there's there's a few that stand out. A very unique one that I like to talk about a lot is I, as a child, was very um, stoic in expression and just I even to the point that they thought I was deaf, like as a child, because I didn't really say much. I just observed. And that kind of carried through as a thought about me for a while of like Jordyn just doesn't have expression. She's like monotone, like doesn't like a lot of things said to me like imagine her in an interview or imagine her in like a like all these things and so I just carried this belief for so long that there's something very wrong about the way that I just naturally lived and the way my face naturally moved and expressed itself. You know what I mean? And the voice that
Mm,
I had. Um, and it's been such a beautiful journey to see that redeemed in so many specific ways. But the Lord's kindness in my life to just like redeem that so specifically, even beyond just reading the scripture and Psalm 139, seeing how one beautifully and wonderfully made we all are, right? Knit together, like perfectly made in God's wonderful creation. Like you can go down that path, but his kindness to allow even like while on this earth, like other factors that are just confirming um, the redemption of that, such as, you know me through a little bit through YouTube videos and the fact that I create videos and everybody comments on how much they love my voice and the cadence that I put behind my storytelling. Like that is such a difference between what I was raised hearing my whole life versus what I'm now like overly complimented for, which is so interesting to me. It's such a blessing. That's not even like that's to me that's even a surface level one. There are much deeper lies, right, that you can believe. Um, Even so far as like as a very recently one that I'm working out very currently is I've been told more and more and more by people recently that Jordan, you're a super positive, like hopeful person. And yet I had a friendship for like 7 years who consistently told me that I was a negative person. And I'm
mm,
like, I just like when you hear that repeated so often, it's hard to not think, well, they've got to see something here. And yet the majority now of like what's being redeemed is seeing like I think what that person was viewing me as is I am a realist, though. I definitely view the world in a very realistic perspective. So I'm not like a optimist in the sense that everything's just good. It's like, no, this is really hard, but there's a very hopeful side to view it, and there's a good angle you can look at for in gratitude and hope.
mm,
And it's cool to see that be redeemed into this is a much healthier, this is actually a very healthy thing that the Lord has also kindly helped me, like a character trait that is good and healthy, and yet for so long was told it was viewed in a way that made me feel very much less than. So
mm.
those are just a few. There's like so many of
Oh
those
yeah.
lies, of course. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but it sounds like you're in a season, especially just right now with what you're walking through with those lies. It's just that you are seeing the redemption in those lies. You are seeing the truth that completely shuts those lies up completely, and
Hmm.
just the peace, the comfort, the rest that comes in with abiding in that truth and abiding just in Jesus and how he just everything that he says about you is true, and then everything else that everybody else says really doesn't matter whatsoever. And
Hmm.
it's nice to have like I typically just think about it like a whiteboard, right? If a whiteboard has something written on it, it can easily be wiped off, right? But it's like
Hmm.
whatever Jesus writes on the whiteboard, it stays there and it can't be
Hmm.
wiped off. You know what I mean? And so it's really cool to kind of have that picture of just like, oh man, I am beautiful. I have a voice. Like I'm not a mistake. There's no deformities that I was given that is dishonorable to Christ, and like everything is redeemable. That's
Hmm.
really interesting to hear. You've got some different lies that I've not heard before, and I want
Hmm.
to affirm that of just like the enemy has to use different tactics with you because he knows what doesn't work. And so that's an interesting point of view to see that what the story that God has given you is so different from me. And yeah, I already have similarities in the 15 minutes that we've been talking already. So it's kind of interesting to
Hmm.
see that. And the story's not even close to being done. So let's get back into that. What a lot of believers talk about having like a salvation moment or a ha-ha moment. Like, is that something that you have in your story? And could you describe that? Or if not?
Yeah. So I was raised in a Christian home, and I feel like a lot of Christian home raised kids go through this like point in their life where they're like, I feel bad that I didn't have like this huge transformation in my life, you know? And I always want to encourage people out of that mindset because you don't need to have like this terrible story for God to like do incredible things in your life. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I am very thankful and very, very blessed to have been raised around with parents who taught me about the Lord. And of course, there it comes a point in your life where you need to make that faith your own and like know that this wasn't just what you were raised in, and this is what you do truly believe. And of course, I had those moments. So, you know, I went to like private Christian schools my whole life, but junior year of high school, I was in a world religions class. So that's when you just get to find out how all these other people were raised in a different religion, right? And you're like, you come to that moment of like, oh shoot, like, how do I know that this one is it, you know? And it's good things to walk through and talk through and work through. And at the same time, I was going to it's funny. A lot of people like go to Young Life for a lot of different reasons. I did like enter into Young Life for just those 2 years, and the main reason I was there, I was like, wow, it's so cool that there's so many people here that I didn't think even cared about Jesus, and they're here. Like that was so cool to me. Like a lot of people, that's what Young Life does a lot of the time. Um, anyway, what I loved about this one leader there, he said something to me and my friend. He said, I'm concerned for you guys who go to Faith. That was the name of my school. Um, because I think you're taught all about religion and not relationship. And I just thought about that question or that statement for a long time. And I was like, taught a lot about religion and not relationship. I'm like, how interesting. And this was all happening like my junior year of high school. And just reflecting on both of those things for me really helped solidify like, no, I have had a relationship with Jesus for quite some time now. Like, this, it hasn't just been a religion. This has been a very intimate walk with the Lord, even as a young kid. And I'm very thankful for that. I've had a lot of harder experiences in life when I was, especially in my elementary school years. I went through quite a bit of bullying and stuff, and that time led me to such intimate and sweet time with Jesus because at that time of my life, my family was going through stuff, and I'm like, man, all I've got is you, God. Like, are you here? And that like developed such a deep relationship with Him, and it was just good to revisit that as older, like more mature brain and be like, is this what I've been experiencing? Is a true relationship with the Lord? And I'm like, yes. And it just really confirmed that for me as a high schooler and then continue to walk and really deepen that walk with the Lord and having, you know, as it goes, every single year you just like just gets you get to know the Lord more and more and more as you walk with Him. And then realize how much you still just don't know, and how big and infinite God is and how finite we are. But uh, yeah, so there was not one huge defining moment, just a lot of those types of moments over and over where, like, you know, even just like this year going through a very hard time, it's led me to how thankful I am for being in a much deeper place of gratitude to be like, even in this suffering that has been really hard this year, I'm like, I see the depth of how dependent it makes me on you, Lord, and I'm thankful for that. That I've got nothing but the ability to turn to you right now, and I'm thankful that I can have enough pillars in my life to see that you have been faithful through and through. So, yeah. So, anyway, yeah, no defining moment, but just a lifelong story. Actually, something really funny. This is kind of hilarious. I found out a few years ago that I was secretly baptized as an infant. And that's just really funny. So, and the reason it was secret was because my grandpa was Catholic. I was raised more in a non-denominational, you know, approach to faith, but my grandpa was Catholic, and when I was a baby, I was born very sick, very, very sick. I was back in the hospital. They thought I wasn't going to make it. So my
Hmm.
mom apparently like went to the bathroom and my dad went to go get food and my grandpa came in and baptized me while they were away just because he didn't know if I was going to make it. And I found that out just a few years ago. So in a way, I was like, I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, well, that's honestly just a very sweet thing, like that he cared so much to make sure that I was covered. And I'm like, that's just really, really cool. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that kind of like that challenge and that kind of call to action that young life leader gave you, did you see like a shift or a change in heart and in your perspective? Like, was there any differences that you noticed from that point on? Or was it just a slow, gradual refining to where you are now still?
Yeah, there's one specific thing that it made me dwell on a little bit more. It wasn't necessarily in my walk with the Lord, but more of like, well, I guess, I mean, it is, but like I said, I was not a very naturally rebellious kid. I was definitely a rule follower, and that can lend to a very legalistic approach to your faith, right? And being raised in a Christian school, especially, like, I mean, I'm memorizing verses. I'm just doing all the things to do it all right. And it allowed me to, like, when I focused on the word religion versus relationship type of thing at that time of my life, I think it made me think a lot about I don't want to be obedient for the sake of obedience only. I want obedience to come from love and true desire to commune with the Lord, to walk with the Lord. And I think it created a big shift in me at that time to like kind of just reflect on myself and ask like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Is
Mm,
it just for the sake of obedience? And am I judgmental towards others? And really asking myself that of like, if they're not, because I think personality does get mixed in with all that. Like, it's just easy for me to follow the rules and do the right thing, but for some, it's not as easy, and that's personality, like too, which I think there's gifts in that. And it just allowed me to question even the sin in my own heart of
mm.
yeah, what is Lord, you teach me what it looks like to walk with you, not how I would define what this should look like, right? So that opened up a lot of those types of thoughts in that time of my life. Yeah.
Hmm. That's awesome. So even like tipping into like your college years and even to where you are right now, can you think of any stories or any situations, maybe conflict, where the gospel changed your perspective on everything? Like, can you think of anything that was illuminated, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think the gospel changes your view on everything always in almost every situation, but um yeah, I mean, so something I can tap into is I've dealt with some chronic health issues a lot in my life. And like it's tough when it's a lot of ambiguous health issues. So it's like nothing I can pinpoint. It's just a lot of autoimmune type stuff. And um it's hard to just not feel well for so long and think you're making it up. And it's interesting. I was just reflecting on this. I used to journal some prayers because it kept me focused, especially throughout college. And there was a point where I wasn't feeling well, and I read back through some of those journals, those prayers, and I realized, dang, they're not being answered the way I want to. Like it's the same prayer. I'm like, I didn't realize I prayed for this over and over and over again, and it still feels just so like God is not there. Yet, I knew that that's my perception. And in that moment, it was really impactful to be like, well, guess what? The Lord is so kind to me. He's been faithful through and through. He's got purpose in all of this. And um, I think it brought me to a point that, like, even if I die today, like if these health issues cause me to die today, the fact that I got to live any day of my entire life was a gift. I didn't ask to be created or to be given life into this world. I was just given it, and that itself is the gift. So not a single day that I've lived on this entire earth has not been a gift that I've received every single morning that I've had breath. And when you come to that bigger perspective and say, what Jesus has done now to even redeem death, right? That even if I die today, I'm gonna be in the best possible place, like the fullest fulfillment of joy and peace and love, to be with the definition of all of those things himself, um, is ultimately my greatest gift I can be given. The gift of life is already great, but I'm now at the greatest gift I could be given if I end up in, like, at that point of no longer living tangibly on this earth anymore, but with Christ. And so that perspective changes everything in my walk through my journey of health issues, of like, hey, even if it got to the point where I really wasn't okay anymore, I'm actually the most okay I probably ever will be, because I'll be then with Jesus in eternity, and that's everything. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I relate to on the autoimmune disease, yeah, on the autoimmune side
Hmm.
of things, so I can understand um, some of the anger, some of the confusion aspects of, well, a lot of I've got a weird part of my story where God healed me for like a chunk of time, and then he just took it right away again. And it was just like,
Hmm.
why did you give me a taste of such a good aspect of my life and then just completely take it away from me? What was the benefit there? But it
Yeah.
is very, very interesting to try and wrap your head around why God does what he does. But you nailed it on the head. Like his goodness is, it's not supposed to be comprehensible to us. We just know that it is. And
Hmm.
sometimes we can pull up experiences of like, I know I experienced his goodness here. But like you said, like we experience his goodness every day that we wake up. If we have breath in our
Hmm.
lungs, every breath is a gift. And so it's really interesting to kind of revisit the conflict and the trials that we are actively a part of on a day-to-day basis and still be able to take those and be like, yeah, but God gave me this. Like this conflict was a gift. I
Hmm.
have I think of that one song, I think it was Blessings by like Laura Story or something like that, but it was just talking about like,
Yeah.
what if everything that God gives us we misrepresent it. What if
Hmm.
we get so mad and so upset about the flat tires and the missed alarms, and reality, like there's just so much that God gives us on such a like small micro doses here or there, and sometimes it's so big we don't even realize it, and yet his goodness is still as clear as it possibly could be. Sometimes we're just ignorant, sometimes we just miss it, and it's really truly beautiful to have moments like this where we can just sit back, not think about anything else, but like look at what he's done and be like, wow, he's so good. Like it's
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
humbling because we don't deserve it, not even close. The amount of times that I've bickered and whined about everything that I don't have that I would like to have, and in reality, he just continues to give me more that I still don't deserve. It levels me,
Hmm.
and it should. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So kind of seeing where you're at in your life right now, right? You've walked through a good couple of years to where you are. Um, Looking back at some of the conflict, the trials, the lies, that you have believed, do you see yourself as a guide or a mentor to other people who are farther back in the story than you are?
I've definitely been blessed with those opportunities. I had played the actual mentor role in leading high schoolers, young high school girls through their freshman year through now. I still check in with them, but no longer as actively in every single day, but still part of my life. Um, and so that's like a direct, actual, like, yes. And then I've been very blessed with very humbled by my pursuit of my creative endeavors, and just putting random videos out on YouTube that share my heart and my faith. And I've been just like, it's so funny. The more you know me, the more you know how much I wrestle and I'm like stubborn towards doing this because like there's something about the online world that I just don't love and wish I never lived in. And yet I'm so there and feel like the Lord has continued to guide me there. And I put out these videos and I've had endless emails, like paragraphs, essays being sent to me of saying like how much it like transformed their whole life, just and mostly attributed to the Lord though, which that gives me the encouragement to keep going because it's like God's the one getting glorified in these emails, and that just makes me so happy. Um, a little, of course, they say kind things about me too, but like ultimately, like, God is mixed into those conversations, and that is just so rich. Like even like churches in Australia and stuff have um, asked to play some of my videos there, and I'm like, sure, go for it. That's just pretty crazy. Um, yeah, and of course, like there's it has allowed me to open up like in the business side of things, like mentorship within the creative space, um, and that's been really really huge and really cool to be able to integrate faith into that when like I mean, my faith is always integrated into it, but sometimes just a lot more directly, depending on the person that I'm interacting with. And uh, yeah, but like no matter what, like I'm never gonna like my walk with the Lord is the most important thing in my life, so it's gonna be a part of everything that I do, and I don't hide that. So yes, there's been a lot of opportunity for mentorship and mentor type roles in my life that I've been blessed to just receive and have and walk through. And always just hopeful that the Lord takes that um, and helps me through that. So yeah.
Hmm. Do you feel like the weight of that responsibility and like it doesn't come naturally to you, like just the idea of being a disciple maker?
Um, well, it's the way you ask that question is interesting. Because when you say naturally, like I've had so many, as for some things that are talked over to you repeatedly, I've had so many people tell me that I'm just very gifted as a teacher and a counselor, and so in a sense, I feel like there's some natural giftings from the Lord to be able to just it does come naturally to me to speak sometimes in those ways that are very helpful for people. But as for like the yeah, wrestling with the Lord of like, why am I put in this position? The Moses like, hey, I can't speak well. Why am I here? And it's like, I'm asking you to do this. Just go do it. You do have what you need to do. Go do this. I definitely wrestle through those experiences at times for sure. But I think I've grown in a lot more confidence in just like, I'd rather not though live in so much in that mindset anymore because I'd rather like, no, Lord, I'm gonna allow you to use me to the best of my ability and not take away some of this blessing by my own like, I think I think there's pride in two different directions. There's the pride of like, I don't need you, God, I got this. And then there's the pride of like, hey, you're not enough for me, God. Like I'm too broken. I'm too, I think that's a different version of pride. And I don't want to dip into the like, oh, I can't do this because it's me. It's like, no, God created me. He created me and thought that I would be useful for his kingdom. And so I'm gonna actually step into that with a confidence that God knows what he's doing and not like take away the blessing that could be by holding off like this fear. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect in this, but I've tried to take a more approach in that way. Like, okay, I will own this and I'll walk through with it, knowing that you're the one guiding the whole story anyway. I'm gonna trust that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, you use the buzzword, so story, right? You're a filmmaker. So this question
Mhm.
is a little different from everything else we've been talking about. But if you could make a movie about your life, what would it be called?
Wow. Um, your questions are great. I love them. I feel like I usually stump people on questions, and I feel like you're giving me a taste of my own medicine. Um,
Yes.
yeah. Everybody's like, your questions are so deep. I'm like, they don't feel deep, and I just think it's funny. I feel like you might get some of the same responses.
Oh, every
Um,
day of my life.
yep. Um, What would it be called? That's good. I think it may be difficult for me to come up with a title right away, but I think, let's see, maybe I think it'd be fun to like title it something like, uh, I'm just gonna say this random title. I don't know if this defines my whole life. It feels a little rough to define my whole life, but kind of what I was talking about at the beginning, but like call it the good girl problem. Um, and I think there's a lot that could be said and like you can dive into some really, really deep stuff with that thought pattern of like what does it look like to write a story about somebody, because this has been my reality, who's been put like on a pedestal in a lot of areas, and to see
Yeah.
behind the curtain of like what goes on in the internal makeup of like my walk with the Lord, the things that I deal with and stuff, even though outwardly people have generally viewed me as like got it really well put together. I think that's a cool story to tell, if that kind of makes sense. And then show the redemption through all of that internally. There's so much. That's just a good question. It's too hard to define a full life in a title for a movie, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. That's the point of the question. It just kind of make you struggle a little
yeah,
bit with it.
yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're kind of wrapping it up a little bit on the question side of things, but what would you say to someone who is scared or intimidated to share their story? How would you encourage them?
I would just, oh man, I'm so passionate about this. Like nobody can compete with your story, and your story is good. I'm just gonna say it straight out, like it's good. It's good. Your story is good. Even the worst, absolute, terrible parts of your story, it's good. The redemption that comes from that, the lessons that are learned, the growth, the struggle, like the very good things, the good things to celebrate. There's like not a single part of your story that's not good and worthy of sharing. And whether or not you listen to this and you know the Lord or not, like, well, I'm going to speak from the point of like, I do believe that God is a creator and he's a perfect creator and the most perfect creator. And there's not a single bit of his creation within your story that at all is like messed up. We live
Mm,
in this in between of like, yes, having to deal with this brokenness and this separation and this all of this messy, but I'm like, God, if God is real, he's infinitely wise, and there's a reason he's choosing that we're still living our life this way. Like he could do anything. God can do anything, and yet we're still living life this way with the brokenness, with the struggles. And so even like the points of your deepest shame is actually a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful part of your story. And I just, yeah, like it just doesn't compare to anybody else's story because like that's what I love is like there's no way I honestly feel like I could just always win this argument. You can't fight that your story is nobody else's. Like there never can it be anybody else's. So in that sense your story is inherently valuable, because it is unique to you and is so worthy of telling. So yeah.
hmm Yeah, I think that's one of the common lies that people do believe is like someone else already has my story. They've already said my story. It's no different, whatever it might be. And like, I just would always shake my head too. It's just like, no, that's not the
Mhm.
case. Like, you were crafted by the God of the universe, the author of the best story on planet Earth and in the heavens. Like, you
Mhm.
think he just gave you a boring story? That's just not the case. That's not in his character. That's not what he's about. And so, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, to just constantly be giving people that call to action of like, hey, you have a story. Hey, you don't need to make something up. Just tell it.
Yeah.
I'm even reading a book right now, and it's called How to Tell a Story. But it's about this nonprofit organization where they just go around and they teach and train people to tell their stories, and then they throw together like these like events where people just get up on a stage, tell stories, and then walk off the stage. And I was like, holy crap! Like, where is this for the believers of Jesus? Like, why don't we do
Yeah.
this? This is incredible. And so like that's kind of been like like this burning in my heart lately is just like, man, starting this podcast back up, hearing people's stories like this, but then also like whatever God wants to do in the future with storytelling, like I just want to be present for that. And I want to, I want to be that chosen instrument, just like with Paul, like he was chosen for a specific job and a role. And like that goes in, how do I say this? But like the stories that we are given give us a little bit of illumination on the role that we are supposed to play. And so it's very, very clear. I think it's funny. I remember the first time we actually ever interacted, I wanted to join your online community that you have for storytellers, for lack of better terms. And I think you
Mhm.
asked the questions of just like, so how do you know me? Like, did you watch any of the YouTube videos? I was like, oh, you've got YouTube videos? I didn't even know.
Mhm.
and it was just such a cool thing that however God introduced you to me, he knew that you were a connection in my story that I needed to make. And I've
Mhm.
grown in the months that I've gotten to know you and the community as well of just seeing people come together for the same reasons. Whether they're kingdom
Mhm.
oriented or not, it doesn't matter. Like God's still going to get the glory no matter what. And I think that's such a cool thing. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. Like
Absolutely.
just like a really fast period at the end of a sentence that you thought was going to go a lot farther. Um, yeah, no. Well, I guess that leads into the last question that I have is there anything else that you sense the Holy Spirit wants you to share on behalf of anybody else who'd be listening to this?
Hmm. Um, I don't know that this is necessarily the Lord, just more me. But um, first, I just want to say what you're doing, Mitchell, is amazing. And I do think there is so much impact in story. And what I want to tell everyone else is kind of what I just already said, but I'm just gonna repeat myself again, is like I'm just so passionate and so like I've been so heartbroken for so many years seeing like social media, infiltrate our generation, the next generation, um, and just to see the sadness and um, this, I can tell just people don't view themselves with a confidence anymore that is a God-given confidence, like a confidence of like you are a valuable individual in this world, and like we're walking without that confidence isn't serving anybody. It's not helpful to not actually view like this life, your life, as a gift to steward well and to love others and to be proud of who you are and not compare to like all of these other things. Like, I see this in so many different facets from like, I'm very much in the creative world, and the whole reason I've built like the online community and stuff is because for years I was mentoring creators and every single one of them sure seem to say the same thing. I just don't think I'm good at this. I don't think, like I'm ever gonna get to the place I want to be. And I'm like, where is this huge lie over everybody coming from that nobody thinks that they're like good for anything? And I'm like, they're still trying, but I'm like, no, like you're individual, you, first of all, and what you have to bring to the table, again, is the inherent value that you're already starting winning. So, all of these other skills that you want to build alongside of that to just display that better rather and tell the story better is is just like another piece of the gift and is fun to explore rather than starting at this deficit of I'm no good. Why don't we start from this like belief of like no, you were created very beautiful and like yes, you need a savior and that's what we're talking about. That's what the gospel is, but you still were created by the God of the universe as a good creation, and he believes that, I believe that anyway. So I'm just so passionate about this whole like just so disheartened by all of the like the anxiety and the depression, and I think it's coming from just an identity of I don't like no inherent value of like being a beautiful creation of God. And I just desperately want to see that shifted and be like, go read Psalm 139
Mm-hmm.
and go see how wonderfully you were made and how intentionally you were made. And yeah, you are worth it. God thinks you're worth it. You wouldn't be here otherwise. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely true. Well, I kind of want to give you an opportunity. Do you want to share about the online community that you have created? Do you want to talk about that at all before we
Sure.
end?
I would love that. Yeah, if anyone listening to this up to the very end doesn't know, like that is how you and I know each other,
Hmm.
which is so cool. So I had a dream for many years. I've been a filmmaker, videographer for a while, and like I said, I did some like mentorship things in between. Um, that because of I'm not gonna go too deep into the full story, but because I like submitted this one video to a contest that I didn't anticipate winning, and it won, and then I had like thousands of people online all over the internet come my way. Um, and I was like, oh shoot, I don't know what to do about this. And yet it was very much formed in like I said, like the glory was being brought to God. And so I've wrestled with the Lord for so many years about like I don't want to be online. Yeah, I've known I've had a deep passion for my whole life to love people and to serve people. And a big piece of that is like through my creative career, I've been able to do that with like the people coming my way. So this dream was formed to hey, I so deeply love community in my actual, life, day-to-day life, but I would love to have a creative community built that was actually like genuine and not just like, hey, I'm gonna build this creative community just to like sell a digital product online. Like I'm like, no, I want to like create a community where people actually walk through life together and I get to share like, hey, you're way more than your career, you're way more than just your talents. You are a full human being and it's been great, fun, amazing. I'm so thankful, Mitchell, that you've been there. Um, and challenging all the same, where I'm like, I'm constantly dealing with my own, like, oh, can I show up in all the ways that I want to show up for this community? And yet, so anyway, I went into more details than I meant to say. On the basic level, the online community is a community for creators to come live life holistically together and to learn the craft and learn how to be storytellers of our own stories and other stories. And I would love to finish this off by your perception of the online community being somebody coming into something that I've made.
Hmm.
It's called More Than a Filmmaker, by the way. The more than requires like or requires, that's not the right word. More than means like you are more than a filmmaker, and it's encapsulating that whole idea that I talked about is life is more than your career and you are more than just this. So anyway, go ahead. I would love to hear your
Hmm.
response back to that.
It has been comforting and refreshing, honestly, are the words that come to mind. I have been a part of tons of different online communities, and there have been some that have had a innumerable amount of connections come out of it, and it was almost intoxicating. And then other groups where people are always just trying to do things for the wrong reason. And as I got uh, kind of introduced into the community itself, I sensed timidity from the get-go because I got there pretty much right around the starting point, if I remember correctly. And as it has slowly built up over the past few months, it's been just kind of like when you learn that you had cousins you didn't know were existed or something like that. And it's like kind of family reunions every week of just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I haven't seen you for a while. Well, how are you? And like not necessarily just what are you working on, but we also that is a topic of conversation as well because we all desperately want that accountability and affirmation of what we are creating and are we creating it for the right reasons and having that peace of mind of like just like we said about being more than a filmmaker, like not wrapping up our identity into this. Like there's people who can't make the call every week. There's people from all over the world. Like we've got people from Australia and Sweden,
Finland,
Finland, yeah,
Finland,
Finland. And it's
and
like trying to
Germany.
get the different, oh, in Germany. Yeah, I forgot about that too. It's so like trying to get the time zones to all line up for calls. It's like, it's such an interesting community because like community doesn't even feel like it grabs the word. Like it doesn't capture it fully. Like we are learning to be a family with each other. And it's such a, like we're getting to the point that I've noticed that we're starting to poke fun at each other. And we're getting to the point where we genuinely aren't coming to the call with our walls up being like, I don't want anybody to know about how I was failing this week. When in reality, we come in and be like, guys, you won't believe how I messed up this week. And it's like, it's such a, like I don't even want to say it's a platform, but like it's just such a good place to see unity around storytelling realistically, people from all across the board, of what they are creating, what they are capturing, and it's really cool to see how God has like slowly continued to multiply it little by little, as the months have gone by, and I'm very intrigued to see what he's going to do with it overall, and how it is going to morph into what he wants it to be, realistically. Because
Hmm.
I can't speak for you completely, but I'm sure that's your goal by the end of your life, is that the community will do what the community was supposed to do at the first place. So
Yep.
yeah, that's what I would definitely say. It's got my stamp of approval, 100%. I'll probably be in the group until the day I die, realistically, if I can. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Praise God. It's really cool to see these things come together. Yeah, it's amazing. So fun to pull people from all around the world and just like collectively be there as like one big family. Because we're one big family. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is like it's not up to you to find these people. Like these
Uh-uh.
people are searching for this and they desire this. And God just allowed you to be the vessel to put something like this together. Not to say that other people aren't doing this, because they are, but it's like little pockets of people who are looking for very specific things. And God just
Hmm.
kind of like popped it up and like, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. And I shared that with you on the call. It's like you created the one thing I was looking for, that I've been looking for months. And I wanted to create myself, but I wasn't in a place or a season where I could be doing that. So, but, but yeah. Well, sweet. What a good podcast recording. You feel good?
Yes, I feel great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, I've got a running joke that I started on the first podcast, and I always end the recording with a high five. Well, when I started doing these recordings, I always recorded in person, but this whole second season has always been through this. So typically we will do a countdown and then we will high five the camera to make it look like we are giving each other a high five. And then that'll just be
Okay,
the end of
sounds good.
it. So, all right, ready? Three, two, one.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's Infinite Story. If it resonated with you, send it to someone you think would be blessed by it. If you would like to share your story, please reach out to us at infiniteideas.studio. You never know how far the impact of your story can reach. Take care now.